Hey guys, Mustang here bringing on Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video, and so today we're going to be taking a look at the EZA for the TEQ Gotenks World Tournament card. Shout out to everyone who mentioned the video that I put up yesterday going over the World Tournament units. For some reason, when I opened up all the units from the main page of the Dokkan Info site, it opened up the Gotenks in like the non-EZA version. I'm not really sure why. It's supposed to just open up the EZA version, and it did for the other two. So I actually didn't even notice. Although the funny thing is, they're not massively different. So there are a couple of improvements, obviously, that make him significantly better. But yeah, I was definitely very disappointed thinking that his original kit was actually his EZA. But this guy is a Super Tech types lead for 3 key 120. His super attack is that he raises attack and defense with a high chance of further raising attack and defense, does supreme damage to the enemy, and greatly lowers defense. So basically the raise is 20%, but then he also has the high chance of getting an extra 20%. Obviously the unfortunate thing with the way this kind of thing works is there's no real way to know other than just by looking at the numbers each turn. Like if he does the same number of super attacks, but then his defense went up by a higher percentage, then you'd know, but you'd have to really keep track of like all the numbers to really see that. But at least he has a chance to get a little bit more stacking. And then his kit, his base effects, attack and defense 150. I think it's like 50% higher than his pre-EZA. He changes AGL key spheres to tech, and then he gives youth allies 1 key 30% attack and defense, and fusion 1 key 30% attack and defense. So obviously for like other Gotenkses, like the TEQ LR Gotenks, he'd be giving him 2 key and 60% attack and defense, which is pretty good. For each attack performed, he gets attack and defense 30% within the turn. So that's one of the additions for the EZA, and that does make him considerably better. For each super attack performed, he gets 10% damage reduction within the turn. And then for every tech key sphere obtained, all allies defense 5% up to 20%. So he's giving everybody a little bit of extra defense, which means, again, if you were running him with like the TEQ LR Gotenks and you pick up 4 tech orbs, he's giving him 60% attack and 80% defense, which is obviously very good. If you get 3 or more orbs obtained, he gets an extra 150% attack and defense when attacking, launches an additional attack that has a high chance to become a super, and then with 5 or more key spheres obtained, he gets an additional attack that has a great chance to become a super. Now the thing is, because he gets that with each attack performed 30% within the turn, if you get 5 orbs, he's always going to be doing 3 attacks, even if they're not super attacks. So that is pretty good. I've built mine for mostly additional with a bit of dodge. He had some crit from like some of the skill orbs. Annoyingly though, on this turn, unless we were to float him off, I can't actually get 5 orbs for him, but we'll go ahead and get the 3 here, I guess. So he's got 163k defense, which obviously is not particularly high. But remember, each attack is going to be buffing him with his passive, as well as super attacks giving him the permanent stack, getting the damage reduction within the turn. Be interesting to see what he's taken on this turn. Now, the thing for this Gotenks, which is good, is obviously being a fused fighter, and then the fact that he's fusion and an Earthbred fighter. He's on the 220 lead for both of the 10-year anniversary LRs, so could be an interesting addition to the team. The problem is that team is so stacked that with his support, at least he is supporting fusion, right, which is basically the whole team. Because, you know, the 7 years count, even the gods, because they fuse in the active skill. The only difference is the tech 10-year, like Vegito, is obviously Batara, not fusion, because no one else on the team is youth, and there's not really anyone on the like optimal build of the team that's youth other than the TEQ LR Gotenks, right? So we've got 2 supers, we've got an additional normal, so we've got the extra 30% from his passive 3 times. He supered twice, so we've got 2 stacks from that, and of course by supering twice he had 20% damage reduction. So he took double digit damage from this Goku Black. His normal attacks do like 400k, so obviously nothing too crazy, but I thought we'd do this Goku story version of the Future Saga, because the final boss is AGL, but they're also quite tanky. So it'd be interesting to see how high we could get this guy to stack up. But yeah, definitely a lot better with his EZA, right, compared to his post-EZA. Because the big things are like the 30% attack and defense with each attack performed, which he did not have before. The damage reduction with each super attack, which obviously he didn't have either. All he really had before was the support and then like the chance to get extra attacks with the additional orbs. So those couple of additions are obviously making him significantly better. So I think what we'll do here, obviously bad sort of setup in terms of getting stacks for you, I guess, but oh yeah, of course there's no point me, I can't like save orbs for Gotenks either really, because we're gonna obviously kill him here this turn. So because yeah, at least he does have orb changing, but it's AGL to TEQ as well. So if you are running him on the team and you're running him as like a floating support, right, to support the other fusions characters, give that really big support to TEQ Super Sentry Gotenks if you're running him, you know that like the turn before he comes into play, unless it's a situation like this where you're obviously going to kill the enemy first, you can save TEQ orbs on the field, sorry, AGL orbs on the field, which he'll then change to TEQ. The only problem, of course, with like a third slot floating unit that is an orb changer is, depending how the orb change goes, you might not be able to avoid picking up the large majority of the orbs before you get to him in slot 3. But he does only need 5 for his full passive, right? And it doesn't matter what kind they are. Obviously, TEQ orbs do give the allies a little bit of extra defense, but if you can't get the TEQ orbs, it's not the end of the world, right? So we can get a little bit of support here from the Gogeta as well. Doesn't share any links with the gods, but we've got Fused Fighter and Over in a Flash with the Gogeta here, and we're at 233k the start of the second turn. So we can go ahead here and grab these for you guys, and then we have a ton of TEQ orbs for these guys here. So bear in mind they give all allies an extra 20% defense, so that takes the gods from 791k to 824, which is not bad, little extra boost. And then yeah, I guess we'll just grab these for you. So we know we're going to get a bare minimum of 3 attacks here in the turn with Gotenks. Obviously, the more supers we get, the better. And of course, having the additional in his hidden potential. He doesn't need to have super high, because obviously a character that every time a character attacks in the turn from their passive or their like effects, it has a chance to trigger the hidden potential. So as long as you're getting 5 orbs, he has 3 separate chances to trigger his hidden potential additional, and I think one was at what, 16, so he has a 32% chance, but that will get checked for 3 times within this turn. So hopefully we can get a quad super turn and see what he's looking like here. But yeah, definitely considerably better than I first thought, especially for, obviously it's an event that I don't want to play much anymore outside of like challenge runs and stuff. You know, we're going to be doing the World Tournament weekend this weekend, and the challenge has been laid down that if we hit a bunch of these goals, I'll do some like Festival of Battles challenge runs. But this guy could be good in that event, right? Because he's an infinite stacker. The problem is, of course, that even if you're getting the 5 orbs, his additional attacks are only an RNG chance to be a super. Like, as you can see here, we did not get an additional super. And then, yeah. Then he takes 1.4 million damage from the Zamasu. Zamasu's super does 2.8. So as you can see, it's going to take this guy a while to actually build up to being able to tank attacks at like a reasonable level. But yeah, he's on a lot of teams. He's providing the support to the fusion characters, which is good. Because obviously, like I say, everyone on this team build, apart from the TEQ Vegito, is a fusion character. And obviously, I guess there's no real reason not to run him, but you could drop him for like the Gotenks, and that would be an interesting one. But it's one of those things of how ridiculously powerful the 10-year LRs are. It's like, are you really going to be dropping them off the team for other units, like for a free-to-play Gotenks, right? I mean, we could go ahead, we could try him out in slot 1, I guess. Does he show any links with them? Shocking speed. Okay. And then, yeah, he has Saiyan Warrior Race with Vegeta. Let's put him in slot 1 and see how we go. Obviously, we don't need the key because we can get the orbs there. Didn't get TEQ orbs, though, so no defense for the extra defense for the allies, but obviously these guys will be fine here. Let's go ahead and do this. Yeah, 6, is that 6, is it 6 million? Can't be 600k, right? Yes, so 6 million, then 7 million. Then we get the super again. See, this is the kind of turn you want. You get the 5 orbs, and then he does 3 supers, and then there's the hidden potential as well. So that's the God RNG turn, right? 4 super attacks, which means he's got 40% damage reduction. He's attacked 4 times within the turn, so he's got 120% extra attack and defense on top of everything that he got from the stacks as well. Like, that's the kind of turn where he will potentially look good, especially nearer to the end of the event, when those stacks start to get up quite high. But unfortunately, we've already seen the example of if you get the bad RNG and then, you know, the boss super, well, I guess that's part of the bad RNG, but bad RNG for his attacks, and then he gets hit with a super attack, right? Whereas if those, on that previous turn, if all of those attacks had been super attacks, then he potentially would survive that super from Zamasu, right? Because Zamasu's super, what, as I say, it was 2.8 million. If he gets the turn where he does the 4 supers, that's 40% damage reduction, right? Because there is no limit on what the damage reduction can go up to. It's obviously just limited by the number of times he can super attack. So with the 40%, that puts Zamasu's super down to 1.68, which is still quite a lot. It will take him a few turns to build up to that, but because he's getting the extra 30% with each attack, I'm actually not sure how that's calced. Like, is it separately, or is it like, is it each time he attacks he gets an extra 30% of what he's already got at that point? Or is the 30% the same buff each time? Because if it is stacking up with, like, the first one is 30% of whatever he's at, then the next one is 30% of whatever he's at, which therefore includes the previous 30%. If that is the case, which I'm not sure, by the time he then has done, like, the 4th super attack, his defense should actually be really high. Which, of course, is very good, right? And that's kind of what we want if we are going to be running him on some of these teams in some of these tougher events. But I'm not entirely sure how that's calculated. But it gives him the potential. And, of course, you know, this guy is just completely, like, he is RNG the unit, right? Because his super attack, we did 4 supers in the first turn. We have no way of knowing whether each of those super attacks was a 20% raise, or was it the 40% raise, because he got the high chance of having the further attack and defense raise. Like, there's no real way to know. And I'm assuming, of course, that each one of those is individual. Like, it's not kind of like the Kid Goku passive, right? It's not going to be a case of, like, if the first one is the 40% raise, then they all will be. I'm not entirely sure, because again, this is not something that is indicated within the game, or like made obvious, like when it does or doesn't happen. So, be interesting to see what his start of turn 2 defense is, though, after 4 super attacks. Because yeah, we should finish off. Yeah, we'll finish off Goku Black here and go back to the Zamasu phase. Watch Gotenks eat another super attack, but I kind of want him to. I want to see him eat a super from Zamasu on the turn where he does 4 super attacks, because I want to see that difference, right, between him taking like 1.4 million in that first attempt and then what he would take in the second attempt if he's actually gotten his super attacks off. I keep forgetting to turn the intros off, because Gotenks doesn't have one. I had it on from recording the Bardock video, but definitely got to make sure that's off before we start the World Tournament. Yeah, get the Gods intro in here. Another turn of Gotenks. Gotenks doesn't share any links with the Gods. So it's again one of those things where you don't really, I guess, want to take one of the 7-year LRs off the team because they're so good. But I guess they're a unit that you could drop in exchange for like another ally for Gotenks. But again, let's go ahead and we'll make sure Gotenks is getting his orbs here. So he's at 344k for the start of the second turn this time around, which is obviously considerably better. So grab the orbs for you. We get all the tech orbs as well, so everybody else gets a little bit of extra defense, which is, I think, a nice touch. Especially as some of these characters, when they start to build up to these really high levels of defense, Gotenks picking up 4 tech orbs and giving them an extra 20% like defensive support on top of that is going to be very, very good, right? So definitely a nice little extra bonus for him there. But yeah, we'll see what he's capable of here on this turn. Hopefully we can get the good super attack RNG this time around, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously he could just super the Gods as well. This is their first appearance, right? So they have their damage reduction still. Either way, they still have their guard. So okay, well, he didn't super them, so here we go. Gotenks. Right, the dodge, but that's fine. We still get the stack. We get the second super, 8.4. We get the third super as well. Let's go. This is up to 9.7. Can we get the hidden potential and break the 10 mil? Yes, let's go. 11.2. Okay. So he should be tanking pretty well here. Come on, super. Super Gotenks. Yes. Here we go. What are we taking this time? Okay. Typical. He dodged, so he took 0. I'm fairly sure we tanked that like super well after 4 supers in the turn. 40% damage reduction. All those extra stacks. I guess it's hard to say because, like I said, the 40% drops his super down to 1.6. He was only at like 300 odd K start of turn. So it really does depend how those 30% calculations for each attack he does within the turn do actually stack up. I'm sure somebody who's good with the calcs, whether it's Proton or somebody else, can let us know down below in the comment section exactly how it works. But I would be very intrigued to know, like on a turn like this, right, where he starts off with like 300k, if he supers 4 times, what is his defense looking like? Obviously, again, we don't know whether the super attacks with the 20% raise or the 40% raise, but even if it was like the bare minimum 20% raise, I wonder what his defense is looking like after that, because as long as he is clearing 1,000,000 and then has the 40% damage reduction, that means he's able to tank normals from a lot of the difficult bosses that we have at the moment. But he is going to be one of those units 100% that if you're running him on the team like this to be here as like a support for the fusions and stuff like that, that if he ends up getting caught with a slot 3 super attack, then obviously he's going to be in a bit of trouble, shall we say. So let's get some defense stacks on these guys just to keep the fight going a little bit here. We can get the extra defensive stacks for the Super Saiyan 4s. So obviously they still have guard at this point as well. They already have 1,000,000 defense. So they're going to be fine here. But yeah, Gotenks definitely seems like a decent unit. I think it's one of those things, it's always a stretch to say, because a lot of people say, I think some people said in the comments on that video yesterday about the World Tournament characters that I'm too like cynical about these units, but it's one of those things you kind of have to balance, like, yeah, they are free to play units technically, so we shouldn't necessarily put like a huge what's the word I'm looking for, I don't know, have a huge expectation for them, I guess. But you got to remember as well at the same time, they're World Tournament units and they're EZAs. So to get their EZAs, you have to play the World Tournament enough to get the medals that you then use to EZA the World Tournament characters. So while they are free to play, they're not like, if you're a new player and you've just started the game now, you can't just get this Gotenks, right? You have to get the copies of him from playing the World Tournament. You have to get the medals from playing the World Tournament. So whilst he is a free-to-play unit, World Tournament cards, it's like the amount of effort and time you have to go through to actually get these cards. My biggest complaint with the World Tournament EZAs specifically is why even bother going through the hassle of like doing EZAs for these cards if they're not going to be usable in the content. And obviously that's where you then have to think, where do we draw the line for free-to-play cards, right? Because I think it's fair to say that like a free-to-play card shouldn't necessarily be an absolute beast in the literal hardest event in the game, which I think is fair. And obviously the new anniversary red zones are quite hard, right? Like this event is pretty tough. Zamasu hitting for 2.8, like it's quite a lot of damage. There's not a lot of free-to-play cards that are necessarily getting up to that level. But then I suppose that is the big thing, is like, do we need the units to be that little bit better, especially when they are, as I said, these World Tournament units that you have to put a significant amount of time and effort into getting, right? So turn 3, or like his 3rd appearance, well actually no, it's his 5th appearance now. He's at 558k defense start of turn, which is not bad. I think that's one thing you have to consider as well if it comes to like, if you are going to use this guy in the Festival of Battles event, these units that have lower stats and stack a little bit slower, like the 20%, unless you're getting the RNG for the 40%, you'd kind of have to keep him on rotation for a significant portion of the event so that he has time to stack by the time you get to the end. And the problem with that is, obviously that's then detrimental to all the other stacking units on the team who also need their chances to stack, right? Because every time you float this guy off, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities for him to get those extra stacks. And of course, if you have a turn where he gets bad RNG and his additionals are not supers, then that's even more stacks that he's missing out on. But yeah, this second run, we've had a lot better RNG. We've got the triple super there. We didn't get the hidden potential, but all 3 of his attacks in the turn were super attacks. And of course he tanked the super for double digits. I don't think Zamasu, he doesn't raise attack on super, does he? No. So his normals do 1,000,000 damage. So as you can see, like Gotenks, on the turn where he gets the 3 supers, he's tanking 1,000,000 damage normals for double digit damage, which again is kind of what we would want, right, if we're running him on the team. But yeah, you guys will have to let me know what you think. Like when it comes to these like free to play cards, like what is your expectation? Like, do you think these units should be runnable in, I don't know, what level of content, I guess? Because I do think it's fair to say that like if you can't run them in the literal hardest stages in the game, that's not the end of the world. Because I guess free to play cards are more for newer players, or obviously free to play players, as you're building up your teams. And then, you know, you're summoning in some of the bigger celebrations, which give you those big boosts for the better units. But you're not necessarily going to have a team that is like all 6 units are the 6 best units in the game. So you've got to put somebody else on the team. And this Gotenks is providing support to everybody for this particular build. You know, if RNG goes your way, he certainly can look solid on some of these turns. So I think he's definitely an interesting unit. These are the kind of turns which will be really awkward as well, though, like where we can't really get a lot of ki. Because it's not even the key necessarily that is the issue, it's the orbs. So there you go. We're lucky with the way those drop down, so we can get the orbs, and that gives him the ones that he needs. Because any turns where you're potentially going to miss out on those orbs are going to be really awkward, because then he's getting very few attacks, and he is a unit that, having these lower free-to-play stats, he needs to get as many stacks as possible, as often as possible. And I suppose that is the other issue. I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier on or not, but if he's going to be run on the team as like a floating support unit, then he's obviously only going to appear every 3 turns, right? Like it'll be turn 1, turn 4, turn 7, turn 10. So if we're running an event that is actually, you know, of a relative level of difficulty, you know, by the time you get to the toughest boss at the end and you're on like turn 7 or turn 10, this guy's only going to have been on the rotation a couple of times. And if you get bad RNG with his additionals, then his stats aren't going to be that high. But I mean, we've got pretty lucky this run. We've got 2 supers here, then a normal, but then we've got the hidden potential super. So he's up to 15 million, which, I mean, again, for a free-to-play character, that's not too bad. 3 supers within the turns, he's got 30% damage reduction. I mean, these guys hit for... Their normals do 1.5 million. So, I mean, obviously we've got a type advantage, though, as well. But then there's also the extreme versus super modifier. So that is something to think about as well for the previous turn, actually, where Zamasu's attacks doing 1,000,000. They would actually do slightly more to Gotenks because of the extreme versus super modifier. And he still tanked those for double digits. Tanking these guys for double digits. I mean, that's what we would like to see, right? If we were running this team on this event because we wanted to beat this event for the first time, we have seen that as long as Gotenks doesn't get hit with a super on a turn where he got bad RNG and didn't do a lot of super attacks, he will be tanking the normals from these guys, and then he's buffing everybody else on the team. So if this wasn't a showcase where we were keeping him on rotation, like, he's providing a decent bit of value to all of these other characters as well. So yeah, I think he's actually pretty decent. It is kind of funny, the fact, like I say, the wiki, for whatever reason, opening the un-EZA'd version of his details when I made the breakdown video yesterday. But it's a nice, interesting turnaround, I guess, to have seen something that looked so disappointing for his EZA, and then actually seeing the proper details and using him in an event that is of somewhat relative difficulty. And he's actually not bad. So the question is, as I say, will he be the best option for the team for the most difficult events? Probably not, but you could definitely use him for some of these things. Like if these events, I guess it depends on how difficult the stage is, right? But some of these events getting missions for like youth and stuff like that, this guy could make a decent support unit for that team. Obviously he would work well with the new Goku, because we've kind of talked about how on this team he's here supporting like fusion and everything, but on that Kid Goku team he is also providing support to youth. So he could work relatively well on that team as well. Like, he doesn't require any specific allies himself. He's just providing support to 2 specific categories. But then, of course, his tech orbs, to give a little bit of extra defense, that's to all allies. So regardless of whether they're fusion or youth or not, if you get 4 tech orbs, he's giving all allies 20% extra defense, which is pretty good. So yeah, he could make a decent little like floating support for the new Kid Goku team as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this Gotenks down below in the comment section. We'll see his start of turn defense here on the next turn. Obviously this is a Master and Goku Black boss, takes ages to kill because they've got so much HP and they heal every turn, but I think it's a good event to do the showcase in, because it's not the hardest of these red zone stages, but it is pretty hard, and it's quite long, so we get a decent amount of time to actually get our like stacks and everything. So yeah, I think we're in a pretty good spot here with this Gotenks. It's at 758k after doing 14 super attacks. Now obviously with a certain stackers, like, you know, we can't compare him to Dokkan Fest LRs, but these guys have super attacked 8 times and have 1.3 million. So he's got a lot of work to do to catch up with these other characters that he's going to be run with. But I think he could be decent. Like, I think the thing with these World Tournament cards recently is a lot of them have just been really, really bad. So to see one that's actually like relatively good makes a nice change, right? Because I think he definitely is runnable in certain amounts of content, right? So let's go ahead and see how well we get on here. Gogeta should hopefully counter the super in slot 1 from, there we go, from these guys. But yeah, they've got so much health and then they just heal, like, ridiculous. It's a shame it's a pre-super counter from Gogeta as well, because obviously him giving himself the attack buffs for the turn, his counter hits so much harder if he's already attacked. But see what Gotenks is capable of this turn. But yeah, it will come down to RNG. Like, we got, you know, the first run where he died, it's because he did 1 super and then some additional normals. Like 10% damage reduction is obviously not going to cut it when you're, unless you're rocking like really high levels of raw defense. 10% damage reduction is not it, but at least he gets the 30% attack and defense with each attack from his passive, regardless of whether it's a super. It just means, like I say, if you're not getting the supers, he's going to have difficulty tanking like the harder hits. But we're starting off here at 10 mil for the first attack of the turn. We get an additional normal, and we do get a super. That's 12.7. Get the hidden potential as well. We do not. But he still takes these normals for double digits. So I mean, for this event specifically, he's definitely working out quite nicely. But yeah, let me know what you think of the TEQ World Tournament Gotenks down below in the comment section. This video probably will go up while we're still live doing the World Tournament, so come over and say hi. Let me know how you're getting on with your grind and what you think of these World Tournament EZAs over in the chat there, or just down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.